Halo Reach is easily tied with Halo 2 for my favorite game in the series, but I have the most nostalgia for it as it was the first Halo game I got really into. But the real question is Halo Reach actually hard, or is it just emotionally damaging because the game spends 10 hours reminding you even a full squad of Spartans can't win a war that has already been lost? I wanted a real answer, so I replayed it and tracked every single death. And let me tell you right now, Reach likes to ease you in with a full squad of Spartans just to kill your hopes, one mission and one Spartan at a time. What starts as a military campaign about a routine investigation slowly turns into a full collapse. Every mission feels like the planet is losing ground and you are just trying to make the Covenant pay as much rent as you can for every inch. But in this economy, you've lost all your pricing power. If you're new here, then I highly recommend you go back and watch the rest of the series to get caught up. But if you just have time for one video, here's the point of the series. I'm going back through some of my favorite games that I grew up with, counting every death, and figuring out which one is actually the hardest. This is the 5th video in the series as I take on Halo Reach. And it's interesting because it's not just trying to challenge you mechanically, it's trying to grind you down emotionally too. Every mission gives you a little more sandbox, a little more scale, and usually a much worse situation than the one that you just survived. Going in, I had a pretty simple thought. Since Halo Reach came out after Halo 3 and Halo 3 ODST, maybe Bungie had refined the formula enough that this would feel smoother and more manageable. Bigger battles, better weapons, cleaner pacing, right? Fuck, dude. No. Oh my god. Fuck! Bro, there was no lunge. What the fuck are you talking about? And to be fair, sometimes it does, but then the game remembers it's a prequel about a doomed planet, and suddenly you are fighting through elite squads, vehicle chaos, sniper pressure, and enemy waves that feel less like combat encounters and more like a formal complaint from the Covenant. So, let's recap each mission. Mission 1, Noble Actual. Noble Actual is not an actual gameplay mission, but it is one of the most important setups in the entire game. It is about introducing the people that we're going to lose, piece by piece. The opening shot of Noble 6's broken helmet already tells us this is a tragedy. But the briefing pulls us back to the beginning and places 6, or us, inside Noble Team for the first time. Carter leads the team with calm authority. Kat is sharp, tactical, and technical. June feels watchful and detached. Emil gives off immediate energy of someone who's going to name his knife. And George stands out as the most human presence in the room. 6 enters as the replacement for Tom, which means the team is not starting fresh, they're already carrying a missing piece. Carter's comment that he's read 6's file and does not want any of that lone wolf stuff is important because it frames us as highly capable but potentially disconnected from the team. That line also sets up the emotional arc of the campaign. This is not a story about one Spartan saving everyone alone, it's a story about whether 6 can become a part of Noble Team before Reach takes them away. The mission ends with a routine assignment to investigate a downed relay, but the real setup is character-based. Noble Team is professional, bruised, and about to walk into a disaster none of them fully understand yet. There's nothing to play here, but the tone does a lot of work. Instead of opening with a heroic power fantasy, Reach starts like a military funeral someone tried to hide instead of a mission briefing. The game is basically saying, welcome back to Halo, please enjoy this scenic tour of consequences. This moves us into Winter Contingency, which begins as a routine investigation, which is what makes the reveal hit harder. Noble Team moves through rural settlements and farmland looking into the missing relay, and at first the mission keeps the situation grounded in uncertainty. The locals are scared, communications are down, and the team still believes this could be an insurrectionist problem. Then the Covenant appear, and the entire meaning of the mission changes instantly. This is not a small security issue or a rebel attack. It is proof that the Covenant have reached one of humanity's most important military worlds. The cutscene and radio chatter slowly reframe Reach from a protected stronghold into a planet that has already been compromised. By the end, Noble Team reports the Covenant presence, and the phrase Winter Contingency becomes more than a mission title. It is the moment. It is the moment the UNSC has to admit that the war has arrived at its doorstep. Oni Sword Base is where Reach starts moving from the Covenant are here to they are looking for something. After Winter Contingency confirms Covenant activity on the planet, Noble Team is sent to defend Oni Sword Base, which immediately raises the stakes because this is not just another military outpost. This is Oni territory, which means classified research, buried secrets, and the kind of information people in the universe love hiding until it becomes everyone else's emergency. This mission also introduces Dr. Catherine Halsey directly, and her presence changes the tone fast. She's not just a scientist, she's one of the architects of the Spartan program, and the mind behind the armor these soldiers are wearing. This is why her interaction with George matters so much. George is the only Spartan 2 on Noble Team, which means he comes from Halsey's original Spartan program, unlike the rest of the team who are Spartan 3s. So, when George reacts to Halsey with that awkward familiarity, it tells us there's a real history here. He's been shaped by her work most of his life, and his line about Sword Base basically being hers half of his life makes the relationship feel personal, uncomfortable, and very real. Halsey notices his modified armor, and the moment feels almost parental in the coldest possible military science way, like she's inspecting both the weapon and the person she helped create. But the scene also shows the distance between them. George starts talking about scared civilian girl from Visegard, and Halsey cuts right past that because she only cares about the Zealots and what they were after. The contrast tells us a lot. George still sees people. Halsey sees the war, the data, and the bigger pattern forming underneath, the invasion. By the end, the base is saved for now, but Halsey's question makes it clear the Covenant attack was not random. They may be hunting for Forerunner artifacts pivotal to the religious crusades, and Reach is already sitting on secrets that matter far beyond this one battle. This is where the game really starts to lean into mission structure to build relationships with the team. Most of the mission is specifically Noble 6 and Cat fighting through to get to Oni. This mission feels like Reach opening up the sandbox without fully taking the training wheels off. You get exterior fights, interior defense, vehicles, turrets, hunters, and enough Covenant pressure to make the base feel genuinely under attack. It's still readable, but the mission has more moving parts than Winter Contingency, so mistakes start costing more. The tone is sharper because you're no longer discovering the invasion, you're responding to it, and the game starts making you feel like Noble Team is being thrown around the map to plug holes in a sinking ship. Very professional military operation. Terrible day at the office. The biggest thing I'll highlight is the fact that hunters finally start to feel like a real threat in this game. All the previous games, the right powerful weapons can knock them off their pedestal in 2 to 3 shots. Now they are much tankier. 7 deaths here. This is low compared to some of the other games in the Halo series, but it shows a difficulty is starting to ramp up. The mission is not brutal yet, but it adds more pressure through heavier enemies, larger combat spaces, and vehicle sections that can absolutely punish sloppy positioning. This is the first point where Reach starts proving that it is not just here to tell a sad story, it's also very willing to make you earn the sad story. Nightfall is the mission where Reach stops treating the Covenant presence like a contained emergency and starts revealing the size of the invasion underneath the surface. After defending Oni Sword Base, Noble Team does not get a clean victory lap. Instead, 6 and June are sent into the dark to scout enemy activity, which shifts the campaign from open defense to quiet confirmation that things are much worse than the command wants to say out loud. The mission is also June's real introduction because Noble Team gets stripped down to just us and the sniper, letting his calm, detached personality take over the tone. He's not loud like Emil or openly compassionate like George. He feels like a professional observer, which fits the mission perfectly because Nightfall is all about seeing the truth before the rest of Reach is ready for it. The Covenant are not just raiding settlements or probing defenses, they have built a hidden staging force complete with organized patrols, heavy equipment, and a major position that points towards something much larger coming next. The local militia presence also matters because it reminds us that Reach had human tensions before the Covenant arrived, but now those divisions suddenly feel small compared to the planet-wide threat forming in the dark. By the end, 6 and June discover the Covenant's fire, and that changes everything. The next mission is no longer about investigation, it's about attacking the invasion infrastructure before Reach loses control of the battlefield. Nightfall feels like Halo Reach briefly putting on a stealth outfit before remembering it's still packed a shotgun. The opening has a quieter rhythm with long-range sniper engagement and Covenant patrols that make you feel like you are sneaking through enemy territory instead of charging into a normal battlefield. The mission widens out, throws in heavier encounters, wildlife, military support, and more chaotic enemy groups. So the stealth mood slowly turns into survival with extra darkness. It's not the biggest mission in the game, but it's one of the first where the planet feels occupied instead of merely attacked. 11 deaths here is another slow step up in difficulty. Things are starting to become less forgiving than the opening chapters, especially once quiet scouting turns into messy firefights with limited visibility and more punishing enemy placement. Nightfall is not just harder because enemies hit harder, it's harder because the mission keeps changing the rules from stealth to scrimmage to larger battlefield pressure. Mission 5, Tip of the Spear. Tip of the Spear is the moment Reach stops being a containment problem and becomes a full-scale military disaster. After Nightfall reveals the Covenant Spire, the UNSC launches a massive assault to break through enemy lines and hit the invasion force directly. This mission matters because it shows the Covenant are not just scattered across the planet, they have organized infrastructure, shielded positions, anti-air defenses, and enough ground presence to make Reach feel like it's already being carved open. Noble Team pushes through the battle to help bring down the Spire, and for a brief moment it feels like the UNSC actually has momentum. Then the Spire falls, the sky opens up, and the hidden Covenant supercarrier is revealed above the battlefield. The reveal completely reframes everything we've done so far. The Covenant were not merely landing troops, they were hiding an enormous orbital threat in plain sight, using the Spire as a much larger part of the invasion system. The UNSC Grafton destroys the Spire only to be instantly erased by the supercarrier, which turns the victory into one of the most brutal, never mind, we're doomed moments in the campaign. This mission hands directly into Long Night of Solace because the problem is no longer winning ground battles. Noble Team has to find a way to kill the thing in orbit before Reach collapses underneath it. This is Reach at its most traditional big Halo battlefield energy so far. You get vehicles, infantry pushes, artillery chaos, Covenant armor, and the feeling that the UNSC finally brought more than 3 guys and a motivational speech. The mission has strong forward momentum because every fight feels like part of a larger offensive, not just Noble Team cleaning up one isolated mess after another. But the ending is the real punchline. You spend the whole mission helping the UNSC win the battle, and then the game looks up and points at a supercarrier and says, that was cute. 6 deaths here, lower than Nightfall, so despite the chaos, it is more readable. The larger battles create spectacle, but we usually have enough space, vehicles, and allied support to survive mistakes. The difficulty is not the sharpest part here, the real impact is the story reversal, where a successful assault immediately reveals that actual enemy advantage is much worse than anyone understood. Long Night of Solace is where the campaign gives Reach its biggest heroic plan, then immediately turns that plan into a funeral. After Tip of the Spear reveals the Covenant supercarrier, Noble Team shifts from ground war to orbital sabotage because conventional military force is no longer enough. CAD designs Operation Uppercut, using a slip space drive as a bomb to destroy the carrier from the inside, which shows how desperate the UNSC has already become. At this point, the plan is less standard military operation and more, what if we threw physics at the problem and hope nobody asked for follow-up questions? The mission also expands the scale of Reach by launching Six and George into space, making the invasion feel bigger than a local battlefield and more like a planetary extinction event in progress. George becomes the emotional center here because his attachment to Reach has been clear from the beginning, and this mission finally turns the loyalty into sacrifice when the timer fails and George chooses to manually activate the bomb. His final words to Six make the moment personal rather than just strategic. He believes his death will save Reach, or at least buy it a future. Then, the Covenant fleet arrives seconds after the supercarrier is destroyed, and the game delivers one of its cruelest reveals. George gave everything and it still wasn't enough. This mission feels huge because it adds a new mechanic to the Halo series. One minute you're launching into space like the UNSC finally found the cool button, the next you're dogfighting Seraphs, boarding a Covenant Corvette, and fighting through tight interior spaces where every elite seems personally offended that you entered the room. The space combat makes the campaign feel more cinematic, but the boarding section is where the difficulty really starts biting. It's dramatic, flashy, and mean in the conventional Halo way. The space combat is great. It reminded me of playing space battles in Battlefront 2, but the controls are much easier to pick up, given you don't have to control over the ship's orientation. 20 deaths here marks the biggest spike so far. All my previous skill issues in the Halo series have effectively been eliminated at this point. The spike came from new mechanics of space battles. The high count also supports the story turn. This is not just a hard mission, it's the point where Reach starts taking permanent pieces off the board. Noble Team is no longer a team of 6. At the end, we're down to 5, and the Covenant are not pulling any punches, so the outlook is looking to be more grim by the second. This moves us to Mission 7, Exodus. This is the campaign's emotional reset after George's sacrifice, and the reset is basically Six falling from orbit into a city that is already on fire. After a long night of solace, the player wakes up alone, separated from Noble Team, and surrounded by consequences of the Covenant fleet's arrival. This matters because the story shifts from military heroics to civilian collapse. The objective is no longer destroying a supercarrier or defending a secret Oni site. It's helping ordinary people escape the city while the city falls apart around them. Exodus also pays off Carter's earlier warning about Noble 6 avoiding that lone wolf stuff in an interesting way. 6 is alone here, but not selfishly alone. They are using that independence to keep moving, link up with scattered UNSC forces, and protect civilians who have no chance without help. The Covenant feel less like invaders and now more like an occupying force, pushing into human spaces while the UNSC scrambles to evacuate whoever is left. The mission ends by getting civilians out, but it does not feel like a clean save. It feels like rescuing a few people from the Titanic after the iceberg already won. Except the iceberg has plasma rifles and keeps sending brutes into the lifeboats. Exodus feels more desperate than heroic. You're fighting through streets, rooftops, and evacuation zones where the battlefield is messy and the Covenant pressure keeps interrupting any sense of control. The jetpack section gives the mission some vertical movement, but overall mood is survival under collapse. This is not Noble Teams executing a clean operation. This is 6 waking up from the worst orbital hangover in military history and being handed civilian evacuation duties. 14 deaths here makes this one of the more difficult missions in the game. The number fits the mission because Exodus has less of the clean battlefield structure from tip of the spear and more chaotic pressure from brutes, jackals, vertical spaces, and evacuation fights. It's harder because this mission keeps making you fight while the world around you is actively losing. New Alexandria, Mission 8, is where Reach stops feeling like a battlefield and starts feeling like a planet in its death throes. After Exodus shows 6 fighting through a collapsing civilization evacuation mission, this mission widens the view to an entire city being strangled from the air. The objective is simple on paper: fly a Falcon through New Alexandria, knock out Covenant jammers, and help evacuation efforts continue. But story-wise, the mission is showing the UNSC is no longer trying to win the city. They are trying to keep the exits open long enough for anyone and everyone to escape. The Covenant jammers matter because they turn communication itself into a battlefield, cutting off coordination while civilians and soldiers are trapped in a burning skyline. The mission also reunites Noble 6 with the team, but the reunion does not bring comfort. It only reminds us that the team is shrinking and exhausted, while also being forced from one impossible emergency to the next. By the end, Covenant glassing begins hitting the city. We have a plan to start making our way to execute, but the Covenant have different plans as yet another member of the team is ripped away from us. Kat is suddenly killed by a sniper ambush while Noble Team is trying to reach shelter. Her death is brutal because it's not heroic or ceremonial. She does not get a final speech, a big sacrifice, or dramatic music politely asking us to cry. She's just gone, which makes it feel like the war is cold and random. New Alexandria ends with the campaign making its harshest point yet. On Reach, even Spartans can die, like anyone else. 6 deaths here shows the mission is tense but more manageable than Exodus or Long Night of Solace. The Falcon gives us mobility, breathing room, but the danger comes from exposure, air traffic, and getting careless around enemy fire. Mission 9, the package brings the campaign back to Oni Sword Base, but the meaning of the place has completely changed since Mission 3. Earlier, Sword Base felt like a military intelligence site that the Covenant wanted to attack. Now we learn it was hiding something far more important beneath the surface. Noble Team is sent back into the base after New Alexandria's falls, and the mission begins with the uncomfortable feeling that Reach is no longer defending territory. It is destroying, evacuating, and salvaging whatever matters before the Covenant take the planet completely. Dr. Halsey reveals that the Covenant were not simply interested in Sword Base as a strategic target. They were drawn to the Forerunner artifact hidden below it, which connects Reach directly to an ancient mystery that drives so much of the Halo universe. The real package is Cortana, or at least the crucial fragment of her carrying information that needs to reach the Pillar of Autumn. This reframes the entire campaign because Noble Team is no longer just fighting to slow the fall of Reach, they are protecting the thread that leads directly to the Master Chief trilogy. At the start of the mission, Noble Team is down to 4 members, but by the end it brings it down to 3 as June escorts Halsey to safety, removing another piece of Noble Team. And unlike George or Kat, his exit is not a death. It's more like the story pulling him out before the final collapse. By the end, the mission makes one thing clear. Reach is lost, but what Noble Team carries away from it may give humanity its next chance. Halo 3 leaned into Cortana and how she always picks right. This mission echoes that sentiment as she picks us, Noble 6, to escort her to the Pillar of Autumn. 4 deaths here makes this one of the cleaner missions in the run. We have what's left of the Noble team here to back us, along with some much needed Oni defense turrets. This mission was a nice reprieve, but the reprieve doesn't last long. Mission 10, the Pillar of Autumn, is where Halo Reach fully locks itself into the larger Halo timeline and turns Noble Team's final mission into the opening move of Combat Evolved. After the package reveals Cortana as the thing that has survived Reach, this mission becomes the most important delivery job in human history, which is stressful because the delivery route is basically through every Covenant unit still breathing. Noble Team has one goal: get Cortana to Captain Keyes and make sure the Pillar of Autumn escapes the planet. As the mission opens, Carter is getting real fucked up by the Banshees and Covenant Air Forces, hot on our tail. Since the ship won't make it to the Pillar of Autumn, Carter drops us with Emil to make our way on foot. As he is sending us off, he lets us know that Cortana picked right. Unfortunately, we encounter some scarabs, which ratchets up the desperation to make our way through. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and Carter's desperate measure is to sacrifice himself by crashing his Pelican into the scarab to clear the way for us. This matters because it shows the team has moved beyond winning battles into spending lives to keep the mission alive. His decision to ram the scarab clears the path, but it also strips away Noble Team's leader, leaving Six and Emil to finish what is now barely a plan and more like a desperate relay race with plasma grenades. We make our way to the landing zone and clear it for a safe transfer of Cortana to Commander Keyes, but just before we make our way to escape, elites overwhelm Emil, meaning we have to stay behind and ensure the mission's success. Emil's death at the mass driver keeps the pattern going, but it hits differently because he dies guarding the final shot, not charging into glory for his own sake. When Six takes over the gun and protects the Autumn as it launches, the campaign finally reveals the full purpose of Reach's tragedy. Noble Team does not save the planet, but they save the ship that gives humanity a chance to find Halo. By the end, Six stays behind. Cortana escapes, and the game hands the story directly into the first Halo, while making sure we understand the cost behind the familiar beginning. 23 deaths makes this the hardest mission in the run, and it fits the story perfectly. The mission has brutal pressure because it combines long combat stretches, heavy enemies, vehicle danger, and a final defense where mistakes get punished fast. That number also makes the ending feel earned. The Autumn escaping does not feel like a cutscene reward. It feels like something you had to drag out of a burning planet by the collar. This leads us to the true final mission of the game, Lone Wolf. It's not really a mission in the traditional sense. It's the final confirmation that Noble Six was never getting off of Reach. After the Pillar of Autumn escapes with Cortana, Six is left behind on the planet that is already lost, surrounded by Covenant forces with no rescue coming. This is where Carter's warning from the beginning comes full circle. He said he didn't want any of that lone wolf stuff, but by the end, Six becomes the last wolf because everyone else had already paid their part of the cost. The mission title is cruel because it describes both Six's tactical situation and their emotional ending. No squad, no command structure, no next objective, just survival until survival stops being possible. The larger series connection is massive because Six's sacrifice helps get Cortana to the Pillar of Autumn, which means the entire Halo story only happens because Noble Team held the line long enough. The ending narration turns Six from a classified soldier into part of humanity's foundation myth. Reach falls, Noble Team dies, but the courage becomes the reason the fight can continue. One death here, the cleanest possible number because this mission is built around that final death. This is not failure in the usual sense. It's the story completing itself. So, big picture, how does this game measure up? Halo Reach is not the hardest Halo so far, but it might be the most compelling story-wise in the best way. My final death count was 93, which puts it in second place for the easiest game in the series, behind ODST. And these are well behind Halo 2, but the difficulty hits different here. Halo 2 felt like the game was trying to kill you because it woke up angry, and that caused me 264 deaths. Halo Reach feels like the game is trying to wear us down, because that is exactly what's happening to the planet. Halo 3 is the easiest game in the series so far, with only 41 deaths, which I think made it less enjoyable, but perhaps that's also because the story wasn't as compelling to me. But I'm happy that Halo 3 ODST was made, because the team-based story in ODST is what laid the groundwork for the squad story that we get in Halo Reach. When all is said and done, I'm going to have to say Halo 2 and Halo Reach are tied for my favorite games in the series. But there's still one game left planned for this series, and that's Halo 4. If you like this series, like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can tune in next week where I take on Halo 4. While you're at it, leave a comment on which game series you would like me to take on next. Right now, I plan to do the new Doom series, but I'm always open to suggestions.